Full of frustration, full of despair. Two British football fans have had enough. The MLS UK Show.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the MLS UK Show. I'm Henry Hewitt, and as always, I'm joined by...
Pink Phony Club. Sorry, got distracted. My name's Elliot Holman. It's very serious. It's very serious. It's not funny though, is it? It's serious.
Yes, it is. I've some decorum, Elliot. You know, you've won the game, you've won the podcast. Orlando beat Atlanta. We don't need any of that. Right, well, we'll be talking about that. Plus, a lot of other things that happened this weekend in MLS very soon. We weren't here last week, though. We were both in Spain, but in different parts of it. So I'd love to say that we've both got great tans, but we both just look like we normally do. So, you know, it was a nice trip. And now we're back in the UK. If this is for our US listeners mainly, it's actually really nice weather, isn't it?
It's Scorchio. Really, really hot last couple of days. And that's because I went to Spain. I went to Spain for 4 days. It was a work trip, so I couldn't really come back with a tan. And the whole time I was away, it was absolutely lush here. So typical. But yeah, just doing some scouting for the MLS UK show La Liga podcast spin-off.
Oh, mate, we struggled to do this one. I don't think we can do a spin-off. Well, let's get cracking then. Let's look back at what happened this weekend in MLS. Normally, we would start with, I don't know, the game that kicked off the weekend, but we don't have to do that. We can wait and talk about Atlanta a little later on. And not only because they lost again, but also there's so many stories happening with other games that occurred. Let's start, though, with, you referenced it before, Minnesota 4, Miami 1. Incredible result for Minnesota, especially because Messi, Busquets, and Alba all played. But the story for this happened after the game. Minnesota doing the standard MLS thing, which I love, and we put it on our X account, actually, last week after when Vancouver beat Miami. It always seems to be against Miami. But Vancouver beat Miami, started putting stuff on social media. Minnesota obviously have this time. I said, that's a really great comment. Pink Phony Club. David Beckham doesn't agree, though, and he's commented on it. His comments were, I've got them here, show a little respect, be elegant in triumph, and respect over everything. This is a very MLS thing, isn't it? The sort of banter that they have on social media. Not so much what we have in the UK. What do you reckon? Should Becks lighten up a bit?
I think so, mate. I love Becks, but the thing is, the negative about Beckham for me is the Miami tie. So it's already, like, I'm already finding it funny. But of course, I love the guy. But that's what it's all about. And Minnesota, maybe more than most, do like a little social media fun. I mean, Orlando did it to Tampa Bay in the week after their Open Cup victory as well. It happens. I don't know if you remember, I had a spat with the Minnesota admin because it annoyed me that they weren't using capitals or full stops. So, me and David Beckham, yeah, we're like that. They've got a new admin who does actually use capital letters now and takes the mick out of Miami. Win. Absolute win. Big W.
So in this game, it was Minnesota went 2-0 up at half-time. Messi then got his 5th goal of the season to make it 2-1. And, Miami's defence wasn't great for the rest of the game, as it wasn't at the start, and they ended up losing 4-1. There's rumours online, I don't know whether these are just social media talk, but there's rumours online that Messi's wanting a meeting with the hierarchy at Miami to talk about Mascherano's tactics. Considering that he's mates with Mascherano and probably had a big say in bringing him in, I know they've not had a great start to their high standards, but are you surprised by this talk?
I don't think that's true. I think if you're manager and I'm your star player, imagine that's possible. I'm just gonna they're gonna be spending time with each other. I imagine they're gonna be at each other's houses. As long as there's a level of respect and professionalism, when we're at work, I am your boss. I really don't think that's the case. We said earlier they're going to be prioritizing, other games, other cups. We said it early on in the season. You can't win everything unless you're Vancouver. So I don't think I'm particularly surprised. Maybe it's a surprising heavy defeat, but it's on the road in MLS. Like, it happens. They were without Suarez, for example. I don't know if there's much of a drama around Miami. I think they just are holding themselves to a higher standard than is possible. Ultimately, yes, you've got Messi, yes, you've got Busquets, but these are aging players, and you can still only have so many. I know they like to bend the rules, but you can only have as many as you can have. And the rest of your squad is going to be subject to the salary cap, the same as everyone else. You're not just going to steamroll this league.
Well, I think Miami think they can, on and off the pitch. They have lost 4 out of the last 5 on the pitch, obviously being knocked out of Champions Cup as well. So this is the first episode we've done since that. So congratulations to Vancouver, whose incredible season continues. Let's go to Minnesota then, because they're second in the West. They just behind, well, I say just behind Vancouver. They're 5 points behind Vancouver, but they're really holding their own. When you're looking at the reigning MLS Cup champions, who we'll talk about in a moment, are just failing dramatically. LAFC obviously are doing okay, but started a bit slow. Minnesota, a shout for you to maybe challenge Vancouver for that top spot in the West?
I think so, absolutely. I've seen a lot of Minnesota. I tend to watch the games that are on early or late, and Minnesota have been on quite a lot, and they're really good to watch. They like to get the ball. They like to get shots on target. They've often playing 2 up top as well. 2 really good strikers, by the way. Yeboah was missing at the weekend, of course, but they've got a fantastic chance.
And what a day it was for Julian Gressel as well, one of his first games for Minnesota, and he beats his former team 4-1. Right, let's move on to, I mentioned it just then, this was the lowest of the low, I think, for LA Galaxy, and they have been quite low this season. The reigning MLS Cup champs in an MLS Cup rematch, it ended New York Red Bulls 7, LA Galaxy 0, equaling the record in MLS. I am hoping one day somebody can get to an 8, maybe not against Atlanta, but someone can get an 8-0. But Red Bulls won 7-0. Greg Vanny having a huddle on the pitch at the end of the game with the players. Fans who were there were chanting, "We want better," and Vanny out. LA Galaxy at one point just tweeted that Red Bulls had scored again in Japanese for some reason. I think they just got bored of saying it, so trying to think of different ways to do it. It's just really, really bad, isn't it, at LA Galaxy? And this is becoming a running theme on these episodes. We're just talking about how bad it's got.
I know, but every time I find it harder and harder to believe. How are we to imagine seeing this episode of this podcast in December? How it's got to be the biggest fall away in MLS history, from MLS Cup champions to playing that same fixture, Red Bulls versus Galaxy, that it was in MLS Cup, but losing 7-0. 2 for Forsberg, 2 for Choupo-Moting as well. I mean, everyone got in on the goals, own goal as well. But what is going on? And remember when it was like, oh yeah, but when Pansel's back, it's all going to be fine. I don't. There's got to be some serious, deep-rooted problems at Galaxy. And when I say deep-rooted, they must have rooted very quickly. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think that own goal summed it up, really. A great finish, top corner from the edge of the area, but not in your own goal, to make it 7-0. I think for me, the biggest thing for Galaxy, obviously, yeah, you can look at what's happening with Greg Vanny, and it's very clear to everyone now that those players aren't playing for him. But you look on the pitch, you look who they've got. They've got Marco Reus, they've got Christian Ramirez, they've got Yoshida. These guys have got experience. These guys have played in Europe. These guys, you're looking at them, plus others as well who haven't mentioned, on the pitch to really take the game by the scruff of the neck, to really push on and, say to the rest of the team to get their heads up and everything, especially Marco Reus, and they put in that performance. there's nothing there for me. There's no leaders clearly, and it's just an embarrassment. And I'm sure everyone, a lot of MLS, fans are laughing at it, and it is something that is unbelievable. But it's really sad to watch. It's got to the point where you're like, this is not what reigning champs should be doing. I mean, it's very difficult to go back to back in MLS Cup. We know that. It's very difficult to go back to back in winning it and then finishing well in the playoffs or getting to MLS Cup again. But you've got to be doing a lot better than this, especially with the players they've got as well. They should be really... somebody needs to stand up and be counted, and there's none of them doing it. And if you look at LA Galaxy's week now, they've got Philly away, which, I mean, that could be 7, that could be more. And then they've got LAFC at home. Ironically, I think probably going into that game, all the pressure is actually on LAFC because no one expects Galaxy to win. But if they get a heavy defeat against LAFC, then I don't know how much longer Vanny lasts. He's got to go after that.
I'm amazed he's still here. As we record this podcast, I'm amazed. I know he's just won MLS Cup, and I know then they've lost game after game after game after game. And you kind of think, okay, but he can turn it around. This is the guy that brought us MLS Cup. But then you concede 7, and I think you go, no. Like, we've talked about this time and time again on this podcast. In the UK, managers get given a lot less time. They get given way fewer chances. I think if Arne Slot, for example, was in this situation with Liverpool a quarter of the way through next season, did do very well to keep his job, because it's going to look like they're getting relegated. And this is the problem that LA Galaxy have got. I think they've got something's gone horribly wrong. Maybe it'll all come out afterwards once he's left. But if he's still in a job after that LAFC game, I will be amazed. Absolutely amazed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Right, let's move on to the next game then. And we cross to LAFC, who did the long trip. I say long trip, they're all long trips in MLS. Up the coast to Vancouver. 2-2. LAFC were 2-0 up after about 19 minutes. Denny Bouanga scored from the penalty spot to make it 2-0 after Delgado made it 1-0. Brian White, it was then the Brian White show, scoring 2-2. Vancouver only lost 1 all season. The show goes on. As much as we're getting tired of talking about LA Galaxy and how bad they are, I'm not getting tired of saying how good Vancouver are. Obviously, we dropped points in this, but following the Inter Miami win, to then win at home to RSL and get a draw in this game, I think that says a lot about this team. It would be easy for him to drop off, only concentrate on the Champions Cup. No, they've picked up 4 points since then, and the show goes on.
Yeah, and how often when you get to the end of a season do you look back and go, oh, if we'd have just drawn that game, or if we'd have got one more goal, would have got us, 3 points. I think these are the games you look at. LAFC, really tough opponent. Yes, they were at home, but drawing 2-2 against LAFC, you're going to be happy with that. I think any team in the league is happy with that. You take the point, you move on. It's not losing these games, which is what's putting them in such a spectacular position. Brian White, brace for Vancouver as well. Man of the match honours as well. So congratulations to him. Vancouver just keep on rolling, and it's so good to see.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, they've got a few weeks now until the Champions Cup final against Cruz Azul. So they can really put that to the back of their minds, and I think they've done that, and they're doing it well. And I think to come back and draw, Vancouver's lofty position they're in and the form they've had, drawing a home game they'll probably be disappointed with, but to come back from 2-0 down and then almost win the game as well, I think it could have gone either way. LAFC had a chance as well, but I think for it to be 2-2, LAFC will probably be okay with that. I think they're unbeaten in the last 5. And I think it shows where Vancouver are. They're not a flash in the pan. They're here to stay this season. Just talking about LAFC, then, like I said, they're 5 unbeaten. They've drawn 3 of them. They find themselves, I think, in 6th at the moment in the West. Does that sum up where LAFC are? Because I feel they're just ready to pounce at some point. Do you know what I mean? They've not quite got going, but they're in a good position.
They're keeping pace, and I think we've seen it multiple times, especially weeks like this week where, you get 3 games in a week, essentially. All of a sudden, things can change very, very quickly. You have a good week, and all of a sudden, you're right up there. And I think LAFC have got the roster to pounce, as you say. And as long as they're keeping pace, it's like the marathon runners. You just keep pace, and you don't want to go too soon. So I expect them to pounce very, very soon, LAFC, but certainly one of the better, stronger teams. Definitely the strongest team in LA.
I know, they must be licking their lips at the prospect of next Sunday's match to LA Galaxy. Right, now it's time to move on to the next match we're going to talk about. And unfortunately for me, it is another Atlanta defeat. Chicago 2, Atlanta 1. Atlanta managed to get themselves back into this game and then let it slip at the end. It's another defeat. Atlanta have just been so bad. Luckily for them, LA Galaxy have kind of took the spot as the worst, the worst team, or the team we expected to do a bit better, performing the worst. Atlanta are definitely in second position in that mini random league I've just created. From an observer on the outside, someone who's not an Atlanta fan, what are you making of it?
I watched the game and I watched it with my wife, and I was trying to explain. I said, this is so weird. I said, we've done this podcast for 8 years and Chicago have just always been so terrible. And now they're overtaking Atlanta. And I was such a long time sufferer of Atlanta being great. And, they deserved their win. 22,000 fans at Soldier Field. Kuipers with an early penalty. Obviously, a handball. It's cost Atlanta a point. I think you get a point and you say, okay, point on the road. Chicago, who look rejuvenated this season. But ultimately, I just think Atlanta, they come up short too many times, too often. I don't know how many times I have to say Goo's out. I don't know why he's still there. I get that now he's been there so long, and it's all the Goos and all that. Like, yeah, great, legend, but it's like, come on, how long is he going to remain in the sticks, just standing there, falling backwards every time a goal goes in? Like, Almiron, I was pleased to see a little bit more from Miggy because I think early in the season he was fairly quiet, and we've seen him kind of come into his own a little bit. But yeah, Kuipers scoring a goal to put him top of the goal tally in MLS, and then everyone else went and scored 9 each. So he'll be fuming with what happened after that game.
He will, yeah. And I think he's been part of this. You said there about Chicago are looking a bit re-energized this season. And I mean, they're only 11th, but still, you do look at Chicago, especially with Kuipers and the goals he's scoring. You're looking at them and going, I can see them making the playoffs this year, where in other years, they've just been started badly and continued a bit what Atlanta are doing. But to say that, Chicago, first win at home, and, Atlanta should have been going there. And, yeah, a point would have been a good result. I agree with you. But we should have been going there and thinking, right, this is a great opportunity for us, who are also poor away from home, and getting something. Atlanta's worst start in MLS history. They've got Austin away in midweek, which is a tough game. And, obviously, as I just said, the away form is very poor. But they've then got Philly, Cincy, and Orlando at home, who are all tough games. And you'd probably expect Atlanta to lose them at the moment. But Atlanta are meant to be better at home. They're meant to be on the front foot. So I think, we're talking about these managers. We're talking about Greg Vanny, who's under pressure. Ronnie Dyler's under a lot of pressure at the moment, especially if they come out of these. I might give him a pass at Austin, although that is the type of game that Atlanta would possibly just throw a win out of nowhere in. If they have them 3 games at home, ignore who they're against, but those 3 games at home, if they don't win any of those, he is under a lot of pressure.
Agreed. It doesn't matter who Atlanta play at home in MLS. If you're not winning 1 in 3, it's certainly not good enough for a team who usually, are capable of packing out that stadium. Let's not forget when they're doing well and they're on form. So, yeah, pressure's on Ronnie Dyler in a big way. I know he's won MLS Cup, but you could say the same with Greg Vanny, and he's also under a lot of pressure.
He is. Right, let's run through the rest of the results then from this weekend. Of course, Toronto 2-0 against DC United. Good win for Toronto. DC's season, well, continues how we expected it to be. Cincy go top of the East. They beat Austin 2-1. Evander, goal and assist. Evander is trying his best to win MVP, isn't he? He's had a great start.
Fantastic start. Great player to watch as well. Love watching him. And always wants to create, always wants to get shots away. Fantastic.
Elsewhere, New York City 0, Montreal 1. I mean, Montreal, I am rooting for them at the start of the season because they play so many games away. And they're catching Atlanta up, which is not good. I think that sums up Atlanta's season, to be honest, at the moment. Orlando 3, New England 3. It reminded me of the time I went to watch Orlando 3-3 against New England when Nani scored. This time, Hayder got a hat-trick for Orlando, he's, but let's have a little bit on Orlando then. Obviously, you'd like to have won. I mean, both teams had amazing clean sheet records going into this, so it's typical MLS that it ends 3-3. But what do you make of Hayder's start, and what are you making of Orlando at the moment?
Yeah, first Orlando hat-trick, I believe, for nearly 10 years. Which is hugely impressive. Look phenomenal on the offensive, to be honest with you, and have looked really good defensively as well. So the difference recently in all of these draws that Orlando have had is that last season they started with so many defeats. So it's building a much better foundation for them to to move forward for the rest of the season. So fingers crossed that Orlando can build on these foundations, and obviously made the playoffs last year after such a terrible start. So, if they start to ramp it up like they have done the last 3 seasons in MLS, then just like LAFC, they're going to be pouncing. Lions pouncing, not where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, isn't it? We said it with LAFC, like you just said there, and I think for the start of the season, we've learned in MLS, you're going to get a few teams like your Vancouvers and your Cincinnatis who start like a train and continue and win Supporters' Shield. But I think for everyone else, if you can have a slow start, but if you're about 7th or 8th going into, especially after, probably August time after the summer, you are in a great position to put a run together and get into the top 4, top 3 and have the home matches in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think that's probably... I mean, New England they've had a turnaround as well, so they're probably in a similar position where if they're around... just on that playoff line or even a bit higher, they're going to hope that come August time, they can make that run and finish well. 2 teams who have started well, played in Philly. It was 2-2. Columbus equalised in the 93rd minute. FC Dallas 1, RSL 1, Houston 1, Seattle 3. Nashville won again, 2-1 at home to Charlotte. St. Louis, who have had a poor start there, they lost at home to San Diego 2-1. Colorado 0, San Jose 2, and Portland 1, SKC 0. The Portland train continues, and what a goal from Moreno. Do you see it?
This is the thing. Portland bucking the trend, because what happens is we criticize managers a little bit, and then normally they get worse and worse, and things get worse and worse and worse. Phil Neville's like being so defiant against the MLS UK show. And Portland really look like they are contenders for one of the top spots in MLS this season. So fair play.
Yes, and what a story it would be. Imagine Phil Neville at MLS Cup. Phil Neville versus Inter Miami MLS Cup. You heard it here first. What a story that would be. Right, well, there's games in midweek. Obviously, we're releasing this episode before these games are played, and then ahead of a rivalry weekend at the end of this weekend. I'll run through the games from midweek, and we can kind of pick out 1 or 2 that we're really looking at. DC v New York City FC. I feel both teams really need a win in that one. Montreal at home, but facing Columbus, so I'm sure they would have liked saying Atlanta at home instead. Orlando v Charlotte, Philadelphia v LA Galaxy, Toronto v FC Cincy, Houston v Minnesota, Nashville v New York, St. Louis v SKC, Austin, Atlanta, RSL v Portland, LAFC v Seattle, San Diego v Colorado, and San Jose versus Miami.
For me, it's all about Galaxy. I think it's a fairly mid selection of games, that, and so all eyes are on Galaxy. How wrong is this going to go?
Well, it could, come this time next week. They could be looking for a new head coach, put it that way. But it would be very MLS if LA Galaxy won the next 2 games and suddenly they've turned it around. For me, Miami going to San Jose. Will the likes of Messi play in that game? Possibly not. So see how they do. They'll want to turn around their poor form. Obviously, I'm looking at Atlanta at Austin, but I'm not expecting much. St. Louis v SKC. Obviously a rivalry game. St. Louis really need a win. Alif Melberg will be under pressure if their form continues into the summer. SKC are kind of in that sort of, I don't know, middle sort of area where they're waiting for a new head coach. Obviously, the Peter Vermees era has ended. I think they're just floating at the moment, so it's a great opportunity for St. Louis to win that one.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm kind of surprised that it's taken that long, to be honest. Obviously, Vermees was in post for so long. You think when you pull the plug, you're going to have someone who's available to start right away. He may as well have stayed, really, at this point.
That's true, yeah. And this weekend, I've noticed that Houston have played 2 home games and then go to Dallas, so the fixture computer has been kind to them in this 3-game week. The weekend ends not only with LA Galaxy versus LAFC, but Miami versus Orlando. I guess you go in there trying to avoid a 5-0 again, but you must be confident that Orlando can go there and, I don't know, challenge Miami and maybe get a win.
Yeah, I don't, clip this time next week, but I don't feel worried about it. Could Miami win? Certainly. But, Orlando also capable of winning that 3-0. I think is a really fair comment. So it's going to be certainly one to watch and probably not one to make any predictions on.
And there's also the Helly's Real, which, I mean, it's going to be a great game anyway with how well the 2 teams have started this season. But, they've been allowed to have bespoke Helly's Real numbers on the back of their shirts as well. So keep an eye out for that in this game. And that's it, apart from to say that Kai Kamara might be playing in that game. And he'll be playing, just signed for Cincy, which I think is his 400th MLS club. So
Orlando and Atlanta are now the only remaining MLS teams that he hasn't played for. So watch this space.
And for anyone who doesn't get our sarcasm, of course, there are more MLS teams he hasn't played for. Don't at us.
Name one.
San Diego. But they've only played 10 games. Watch this space. San Diego. To celebrate Kai Kamara's 41st birthday, his MLS sort of retirement tour will go to San Diego. Right, that's it from us for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please, if you are listening on your podcast provider, leave us a rating, leave us a review. But Elliot, if you are going to leave us a rating, there's one rule and one rule only. 5 stars only. Yeah, no more LA Galaxy style.
They don't. How they won 5, I've got no idea.
It took him a while to win that 5th though. 6th though. We had that we had that nailed down for a long time. If you are watching on YouTube, then please subscribe to the channel, like this video and comment. Tell us what you think of your team and how they've done so far this season. We love reading the comments and hearing what you guys have to say. Right, we'll be back next time. But for now, I've been Henry Hewitt.
And I've been Elliot Holman.
See ya.